Hello listeners, and thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Akin Omobitan. I'm the content producer for Authentic, and I'm joined today by Joe Haworth. How are you doing, Joe?
I'm great, Akin. How are you?
I'm feeling really good, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm feeling really good. I'm excited to kind of dive into some topics around positivity and I guess the workplace and workforce and just different trends which are shaping and hopefully having a positive impact on the way that work looks. So I'm so delighted to have a conversation with yourself. For the listeners, would you like to kind of give them a bit of a taste or a feel for who you are, your background and what keeps you busy?
Yeah, sure. Joe Haworth. I'm a chartered psychologist. I work primarily in executive coaching, largely working for corporates in the financial services sector and also for business schools. I've been doing that probably for the last 20 years. But my long-standing history was that I trained as a clinical psychologist, thanks very much to the health service, and then moved into helping people in an occupational space.
Oh, super. Okay, so like quite dabbling, I guess, in a few different things, and you seem very, very happy with it as well, working to your strengths.
Absolutely,
I assume.
Yeah, absolutely. I love literature, story, and I have that every day in my job. Super.
So yeah, on the topic of strengths, so Authentic have a strengths-based assessment called the Point Positive Assessment, and the idea behind that is allowing people to find out what they're like at their best so that they can be that version of themselves more often. In today's workplace, what value do you see in terms of individuals, employees, leaders, I guess at every level of an organization? What value do you see in people playing to their strengths?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things I focus on a lot is watching people's facial expression, and you can see instantly when someone's in an area of strength. And certainly when I see people for the first time, if I'm in control of their circumstances, then regardless of whether they've come to me because of a problem issue at work, we will spend the first couple of hours having conversations about not just their own strengths, but situations that make them feel great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so situations that make you feel great, and I guess because with your strengths, that would be like what you're applying to something. Whereas a situation that makes you feel great, you might necessarily not have any influence there, but the environment and the setting and the individuals, there's something where it allows you to feel, I guess, at ease and possibly taking it a step further to make you feel happy.
Completely. So whether that's someone's favourite architectural space, their favourite novel, their favourite film, these are things that help people come alive. So that helps me calibrate their facial expression. It tells me about metaphor and meaning. You're talking about who people's role models are. Michelle Obama comes up quite a lot. But let me think, famous cooks come up as well. And there's something about those people that have made the person I'm interviewing feel really great. Something that they're aspiring to. So for me, this is a really important part of someone's world.
Yeah, so it sounds like, for me, it sounds like what you're doing is, so people may approach you with a work-based issue, and which you're aware of is why they have come. But before we tackle that, let's see what you are like as a person. Let's see
the whole person, exactly. Yeah. I mean, people are probably going to come to me because they have, they are Helen Mark 1. They want to be Helen Mark 2. But let's not get stuck in those barriers first of all. Let's talk about Helen at her best. Certainly those things help create that.
So in terms of your approach, I imagine there's several different ways in which you can help someone pull out their strengths.
Absolutely,
and
yes.
There's several different ways that you can help someone, I guess, open their mind up to what their potential is. So what inspired some of your methods or your approaches?
The first one was an irreverent, cheeky smile that someone gave to me in a hospital in southeast London, where I was training. I was supporting a staff team on a placement who were looking after an individual who had multiple needs. And to look after this individual, there was a staff team of probably about 20 people because the needs were very great and 2 staff were needed at all times. Morale wasn't great, but these were specialists in helping people change behaviour.
Yeah.
I was a new clinician and I thought I must do the right thing. We had to do an assessment, so I thought, what are all these different instruments we can do? Trying to do my best for my supervisor. This psychologist, now would have been much younger than I am now, but seemed old to me, said, all that he's going to do is tell us what he can't do. Shall we just get a list together of what he can do?
Okay.
And I just thought, oh, how great. Because I thought this was going to be my job, doing these checklists. So that was a great introduction to the idea of positive psychology.
Oh, super. And I guess since that introduction, in which other fields or areas or individuals have you kind of like looked at in terms of, I guess, spearheads of positive psychology or influencers, people with a significant contribution to the science?
I suppose I've found the work of Seligman very interesting, the authentic happiness work. Also, I'm very much a pragmatist. My role isn't to do research, but it's to look at, what makes an individual overcome that barrier. Yeah, it's not rocket science. The barriers are always straightforward, but to that individual, they're not.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge. One of the things that has been helpful, I think, as a simple and cheap instrument, is the work of Gallup. Yeah, with their Strengths Finder books. Very simple and cheap from Amazon, but they enable people to get a quick idea about strengths. Particularly useful, I think, with teenagers, in fact. The fact that there are 30-something, rather than the traditional 10 or 12, I think helps teenagers whose strengths aren't really being harnessed anywhere to see themselves in a different way. Point positive, though, I came across, first of all, working with John at London Business School.
Okay.
When I was introduced to Reflective Best Self, I particularly liked the way it distilled on paper for people exactly what people appreciated in them.
Gotcha.
So much so that I actually wrote to the university to see, can I use this outside? And there was nothing. Yeah, so I'm delighted to see the One Self move into Point Positive. I've done that assessment twice personally because of the need to train, which has been an experience that I describe as first time somewhat treacly.
Treacly?
Yeah.
Okay, I need to crack that open a little bit. So when you say the first time around, I'm assuming this would have been the One Self assessment side of it.
Yeah.
So you found that treacly. What do you mean by that?
Well, even now it makes me want to smile. It had felt like a big ask to get people to write about me. And here was this document which said paragraphs. And it still makes me smile now. I just remember putting it in the desk drawer and thinking I'll get this out again a bit later. So I completely get the importance of coaching around that. For some reason I couldn't attend that training session. And then another opportunity with Point Positive, which was fabulous. 3 members of my family wrote very long paragraphs all about the same incident and time in our life as a family from different angles.
Oh, I see.
So that has been a precious joy.
So that's, I guess I find that super intriguing because when individuals come to yourself, they're coming with one specific issue. Likely they think it's one specific issue, but you say your approach is to look at them as an entire person. And so with the Point Positive assessment as well, it seems to be disseminated largely in I guess in a professional capacity, but it's asking you to reach out to friends and families as well,
absolutely.
to once again get a bigger picture or a more broader picture of yourself as an individual. And have there been benefits that you've witnessed to that, where it's not just what do your colleagues think, but it's what do the people closest to you think? How do you feel that has helped in terms of people becoming more self-aware of their strengths?
Oh, completely. Some of the work that I've done with Point Positive has been with groups of senior leaders, and listening to them talk to each other, very poignantly about stories where perhaps someone in the family was very, very ill, and the skills that perhaps their mother and sister had talked about that they showed, that also flow through their workplace. It's a very poignant moment to be with people with. But in terms of, so that's, I guess, the emotional part that people process well either in a group or individually. But I think my experience of the treacle means it's helpful if we're with them, because otherwise it may have stayed in the drawer.
Totally.
Yeah.
So speaking of being with them, so you've taken the point positive assessment yourself, and you help people, I guess, in terms of how they debrief and make sense of this, and then possibly apply it going forward. So how do you help individuals to benefit from this report that they've given, which, as you mentioned, it can be massively emotional. Yeah. It's qualitative, so it can also be quite a lot to sit through and read as well. So how do you help people get benefit from this report that they receive?
I guess it depends on the structure of the connection that I might have with them. Sometimes that can be useful when people are in a group of peers. Someone from a global organisation that was visiting London with peers coming from, internationally, said the conversation he'd had with someone who worked for him had been worth every one of that group members travelling.
Wow.
To be there for the week, because it had given them a different connection. So sometimes I think these are conversations between people that are very significant and can unlock things. Other times, really, and that's my belief in terms of coaching, keeping things as simple as possible.
Okay.
So literally, if we just have an hour with people, and that's kind of some of the work we've done, has been literally saying, okay, what's the list of strengths that you've compiled from here? How do you manage to use this in this aspect of your work? Or this is one of the challenges you've brought with you. How might you use strength A or strength B? Very simple. And, I'm simply posing the question and creating the atmosphere. I can see all the work going on in the other person's head.
Nice. Yeah, as you're watching for those facial expressions and seeing what you're picking up on.
Yeah.
So if we keep it on the workplace as well, so before hitting record, we were talking about, I guess, startups, entrepreneurs, younger people in the workplace as well. So let's imagine a world in which workplaces are allowing more people to bring the best of themselves to work and to bring their strengths to work. How do you believe that looks? What does that change in the workforce, on an individual level, amongst smaller groups as well, startups perhaps?
Yeah, I must admit I'm more optimistic about startups achieving this.
Wonderful.
Although sometimes I think the glossy image of the startup, isn't necessarily, some of those things that were in the old-fashioned stuffy organisations with grey suits are still imported, and I don't think we can be put off by the fancy furniture. But I do think that a startup in itself, or a business of up to 10 people, can't afford to ignore strengths. And that's one of the great advantages for working with those organisations. And, I do see millennials walking with their feet.
Yep.
To say, actually, I don't want to be part of an organisation where I've got to be very careful about what I say.
Yes.
Yeah, where my uniqueness can't be taken into account. So I think that, the millennial shift will really help us. In the same way that it will do with feedback. Are those millennials really going to wait an entire year for their performance appraisal? I really don't think so.
Well, I mean, that's a big debate even in itself, is the value of the annual review, and I guess is there the benefit of waiting 12 months and then having a 3-hour long conversation about something which may have happened 9 months ago, 6 months ago? Elements or areas in which areas that you need development it can kind of come across quite negatively if your manager now tells you these are areas in which you need development. Be like, well, if you've been aware of this for the last 6 months, why haven't we had more conversations about it? Why haven't I been supported in those areas? And then I can imagine the frustration then also of feeling a little bit handcuffed or restrained in the sense of, well, you're measuring me against these KPIs. However, all of these strengths and qualities that I have, you're not allowing me to kind of like run free and do what I do best.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that that's what Point Positive can do, is allow people to become more aware of what these strengths are, because it can influence the conversations that you have with your manager, with your teams even, to say, this is what I can confidently and competently bring to the table.
Yeah, and especially as part of onboarding, I think that works really well. If we think about the use of psychometric tests as part of learning compared to 360 data, the average leader is much more interested in the latter because it's very real, it's anchored in their own work world, and it's qualitative. It's the qualitative part that they really like, and Point Positive brings that, but focused entirely on the strengths. So that I think that has a great place within those tools.
Oh, super. So just before we do step aside, I guess an opportunity for listeners to kind of find out more about what you do or how to kind of contact with yourself. Is there anything that you would like to share with them?
I guess, I feel a bit tongue-tied at that point because really everything that I do is bespoke. Yeah, so I guess one of my themes is you're the expert on you.
Yep.
Yeah, I bring some expertise in understanding the world of work and enabling you to not just find a path or the right path, but to find the right path for you, I suppose is what I do. Because it's bespoke, it's tricky for me to articulate quickly.
That is no problem whatsoever.
Okay.
Thank you very much for this time as well. It's been lovely chatting, both on microphone and off as well.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can catch up again sometime and do some follow-ups and have some wider conversations on some alternative themes as well. This has been super. Thank you very much, Joe, and enjoy the rest of the day. There's plenty of it to be had. Some lovely sunny day here in London, and I'm going to skip across town and get back to putting my strengths to work.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
So thank you once again, Joe, and thank you listeners for tuning in.
Lovely. Yeah, great to meet you, Akin.